And welcome, Rocco Panetta.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for being here. What you're doing is just amazing. I do want to share a couple of facts before we actually begin. And I know you're going to join us for the panel discussion as well.
Okay,
so
great.
we want
Thank
to
you.
really pay attention to all these different things that happened tonight. This texting while driving, the #1 killer of teens in America. It's noted that teens text 3,000 texts a month. Comes to about an hour and a half a day.
That's the average. Some
that's
more,
the
some
average,
less.
some more than others. 14 deaths a day. And we have to mention all of this because we have to tell the audience and share with the teens, parents, everyone what exactly is going on. How did you get involved in this?
Well, I'm a salesperson. I'm on the road every day, and you see people on the roads and what they're doing and how they're distracted, and everybody's texting and driving. So about 3.5 years ago, I got involved trying to bring awareness to the problem.
And it's something that you have to do, and you have to do it daily. It's not something you could just throw out there and expect that people will remember it, because why?
Well, there's a whole casualness about it. So people take it for granted. They don't take it seriously. If you ask somebody, do they drink and drive, or do they wear their seatbelt, they'll say, no, of course I wear my seatbelt, and no, of course I don't drink and drive. But if you say, do you text and drive, it's more casual. Well, I do, but I know I shouldn't. There's not any conviction to say, no, I'm not going to text and drive. It's still an education process, just like drinking and seatbelts were 30 years ago. That's what texting is today.
And the distractions, 500,000, did I read that right? 500,000 people in accidents per year, 8,000 teens dying?
Yes, it's the #1 killer of teens in America today, more than disease, more than drugs, more than anything else.
I want to show our audience a very quick video that just came out. And I think that this is very powerful. It's very quick, but I want your response to it. Let's take a look, please, at that video.
All your friends, they had your goods right inside.
Rocco, what do you think of something like that?
Yeah, that's a great video. I just saw that video recently, and I'd love to use that as an example. That's a great video.
Absolutely, and constantly, as I said, we have to keep bombarding. And remember, it's not just teenagers, and we're going to go into other specific, numbers as well. So the motto is, "It can wait. Is it worth a life?"
Yes, those few couple of letters that you're typing. It takes 5 seconds to type or read 2 words. And if you're ever driving the car, would you take your eyes and close them and count to 5 Mississippi? You would never do that. I mean, I've experimented. You can't make it past 2 Mississippi without looking where you're going. But when you take that phone, you look down at that message, you'll read that message for 5, 6, 7 seconds, and you've traveled the length of a football field.
I was just going to say, in 5 seconds, if your car is going 55 miles per hour, it is the length of the football field.
Right, and you haven't seen anything that's happened in front of you.
No.
And when we taught you to drive, they're teaching you to be a defensive driver. So look in your mirrors, knows what's next to you, know what's around you, so that if something happens in front of you, you can react. But if you're not even aware of what's happening around you, then you can't react to anything.
And I also understand that you say this is even worse than drunken driving. Explain what you meant by that, please.
They've done tests where this is, and Mad doesn't like when we say this, but it's 23 times worse than drinking and driving, because you're actually not even looking where you're going. At least And not to say we should drink and drive, but if you're drinking, at least you're looking where you're going. And whether it's blurred or not, at least you have some vision. But when you're texting, you're looking down away from the road, you see nothing. You see black screen because you don't have no idea where your car's going.
Here's the other thing. You really can't do two things at one time where people think that they can and do it well. So if you're thinking about something, even if you're speaking, you're not concentrating on that road. And all it takes is just for that to change the rest of your life, whether it is you who is involved in the accident or you who is texting. You know, recently I saw a gentleman on TV heartbroken. He has to live with the fact that he was indeed texting, and 3 people in the car that he had hit actually died.
Well, you know, in our lives, we grow up with always a second chance.
Right.
If you hurt yourself or you hurt somebody or something happens, you always feel that you have that second chance. But when it comes to texting and driving, you don't get that second chance because you've done the damage, whether you've damaged property, hurt somebody, or actually killed somebody. Now you live with that forever, and it's life-changing.
And you're also, insurance-wise, I understand, going to be held liable for this now. It's going to be...
They're pursuing that, where they would have no liability because you're being negligent.
Here's the other thing. The other day I saw somebody texting, and there was a police car, and I went, okay, and I know I'm supposed to be paying attention, but what happened is her line of vision, because of the police car, all of a sudden her head went down, and what I understand happened is that she probably was texting. Now her whole line of vision is down here, and she's totally not paying attention.
Not at all.
50% of the states in America have texting laws. But what you're saying, and what you told me before, is that people have to police themselves. So how do we get that out there?
It's an education process. Just like we've educated, we still educate about drinking and driving, we still educate about seatbelts. This is an education process that has just begun. So we're trying to teach children that have been texting before they ever drive. Now all of a sudden we're putting a car in their possession now to drive, which they feel they're obligated to drive. It's a passage of life that I get to drive. My mother drives, my sister drives, my brother drives. Everybody's driving, so I'm going to drive.
It's not a privilege, it's an entitlement.
Right. They think they're entitled to drive, where they're not learning that, and they assume that nothing can happen to them because they're teenagers, so they're invincible. And they feel that they can multitask. And you know, there are things you can multitask doing, but not when you need your eyes. Because you don't want to use peripheral vision to drive.
No. We're going to show a video right now that you have given me to use. And it is used in high schools. I will tell everybody it is rather graphic. It's been reduced to just a little over 3 minutes. But if you have somebody very young in the room with you, as important as the show is, you may not want that child to see it. But I do believe for high school students, and we'll talk about it in our discussion later with Legislator Stern, I think this is something that needs to be mandatory. Let's please take a look at that video.
Oh, I'm going to text him, see if he fancies.
Oh, Johnny dear.
Hi, James. My mate Jules fancies you.
Don't.
Cass. It's not even funny now. Oh, let me just get his number.
Bring an ambulance! Bring an ambulance! Stay still! I can't open the door. I've rung an ambulance.
We've got other people on the route to help, okay?
I'm going to leave this one side, I don't want
The ones in the front or the ones in the front?
Mommy, Daddy, wake up! Mommy, Daddy, wake response whatsoever.
I want Mommy and Daddy to wake up.
Lest you think that it's only teens who are texting and driving. Not the case. 33% of teens admit that they are texting. 50% of employees said that they are. And what I'd like to discuss with Legislator Stern and Rocco and our panel later on is, can these employers be held accountable if these employees who are texting, who admit to it, are working for them in some kind of driving capacity? So it's something to think about.
Yes.
I do have a question. When I was speaking with Rocco before, we were talking about 50% of employees admit to texting and driving.
Yeah.
What is your opinion, and legally what do you think of, if they're held responsible if they're texting, they're in accidents, and we know the average accident is $120,000, and it's not even all about the money, but should they be held responsible, or is it for specific jobs that they're employed in?
I'll tell you, this is really a critical concern, and it is growing, as Rocco points out. This is a growing problem in our community, and we're very proud in Suffolk County that we passed one of the very first no texting laws throughout New York State, and it is now the standard throughout New York State. We're very proud of that. And again, it's not just the underlying substance of the law, but the awareness that the law raises, that Rocco and his organization raises, really a lesson for all of us. Part of it is awareness, part of it is enforcement, and part of it has to be a tougher crackdown under the law.
Right.
Whether that is criminal jail time, significant, substantial fines, or liability, as you raised. Is it foreseeable that an employee who is operating a motor vehicle could be doing so in a negligent way through texting? I think that is entirely foreseeable. There might be situations where you are working for someone and what you do rises to the level of gross negligence, which under the law might not necessarily be foreseeable, and you can't necessarily hold the employer liable.
Responsible for it.
Is texting foreseeable? Well, based on the statistics, I think it speaks for itself. So do I believe that an employer under those circumstances should be held liable for the negligent conduct of an employee texting while driving on work time? I absolutely do.
Now, texting is an immediate gratification. We're suddenly in this, and I think everybody would agree, we want immediate results in everything,
Yeah, well, when you leave a phone message, people expect you'll get back to them whenever you get the message. If you send an email, people expect you'll get back to them. With a text, they expect a response right away. Within 3 minutes. If you don't get a response, they're texting you again.
So here's my question. Can you take the phones away from somebody? Imagine what that would be like if somebody were caught texting and driving, and I see the head going back and forth. So legally you can't do that?
Well, texting while driving, as we all know, is as dangerous as it is. It's difficult to enforce because, and our police department is well trained on spotting it, but it's also difficult to enforce. And so much of it is really making sure we get the safety message out there so that people can really.
You're more likely to take away the privilege of driving than take away the phone.
Absolutely.
Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And can you, if there is an accident, know that somebody had texted? I mean, are people able to do this to determine that somebody was texting?
They do, and they have done that.
They can do it, yes.
They've been
they
able
can.
to prove it.
Everything's timestamped. And going back to the employer, the employer has a liability for that as well.